All right.
Alrighty.
Archiving launched.
It's 11 o'clock.
Servox, you're like 5 seconds late. Get with the program, Chicklet. Electronic Chicklet. Ooh, nice riff.
Rocking out, man.
Wow.
All right. I was thinking it was Eddie Van Halen's
Don't
birthday.
smash a guitar on the floor. Don't hawk over the speakers.
I'm excited because you realize it's a holiday season. This is the there's the Queen and the
There
band.
she is.
Here comes Peter Cottontail hopping down the bunny tree. Hippity hoppity, Easter's on its way. Everybody singing along.
Yeah, everybody.
Bringing all the girls in joy. Baskets full of science toys.
Oh yeah, now we're
Hippity
talking.
hoppity, Easter's on its way.
Oh,
I just happened to
science
bring my
toys.
little country guitar.
I
with
really
me.
like your country guitar. It's very cute.
You know, I like to take it everywhere I go.
It's a 6-string country guitar.
It's got a little Velcro. I hook it on my horse. It just stays right there. No.
Does your
Oh,
wife
my
know
gosh.
that you have a horse?
Oh, my wife forgot about her. Yeah, she would prefer to. She would be the first to have a horse.
Oh, I'm
She's the
sure.
horse person. She's used to, yeah.
Does she whisper to it?
Well,
Is she a whisperer?
no, I don't think she's a horse whisperer. She did have some horses when she was a kid. Everybody's jealous when she's one of those kids that had a
man, I am
pony.
jealous.
When she was a kid, she had a pony.
Pony. I had a brother. That's what I had.
The only thing relative to
You can't ride them. I tried.
the only equine memory I have of a child was somebody saying, "And the horse you rode in
the
on."
horse you rode in on.
Never mind. Hey, good morning, Robert Strong.
Good morning, Richard Pollock.
Man, I tell you, we're just too festive here. The
And
Easter
the horse you
holiday.
rode in on. Hey, today is April 3rd, 2021. Now, I'm not sure why my eyes seem fogged up. I don't have on my glasses.
It's the emotion. It's just
the emotion of
yeah.
Radio Science News. This is episode number 779 in a series. If you're into
Wow.
prime numbers, that's 19 times 41. And if you're into time, and of course we all are, today is the 62nd. Let me say that again.
62 times.
62nd anniversary of Mercury going around the sun.
Okay.
Since Radio Science News started
Oh, my goodness.
back in April, almost 15 Earth years ago.
Yeah, wow.
So this is the 62nd Mercury year of Radio Science News on the air. Isn't that awesome?
That is. I mean, I like looking at time and math and numbers those different ways because people on different planets. Of course, people are what? What do you know?
We
that I
have
don't
people
know.
on different planets?
I'm just saying, if so, they see
Newsflash, Radio Science News says there are people on other planets.
people should. So some people should be on other planets with us.
Some people are definitely from other planets.
Robert, we have so much good science to get to, and I want to give a shout out to. I got a neat phone call from I think a fellow from up in Rockport, New York, who was talking about how he tries to catch the show on WHDD Robin Hood Radio.
I
think
saw that email, yeah.
Yeah, I think Ray Cullen, and I want to say to Ray because I texted him back, and I think
Howdy,
maybe,
Ray.
I'm thinking maybe he doesn't do texting on his phone,
Right.
But he told me what his email was in his voicemail, and I couldn't tell what it was, and I sent various, I think it's this. So anyway, I just want to say, hey, thank you, Ray, because
Thank you, Ray, for being out there listening.
he talked to the WHDD Robin Hood people and said, hey, why don't you have these guys on demand?
There you go.
And they said,
I
well,
demand it.
Well, but the thing about trying to catch us, at the live streaming
Right.
is it can be an issue. And sadly, at our end, we just haven't taken the time to like put up, accessible
Even
podcasts.
though, wait. Why is that?
Well,
Being that we're paid so much.
Well, no, but we've had several people say they're going to do it and all. But the nice thing is that Marshall Mills, the folks at Robin Hood Radio,
Yes.
WHDD, said, "Well, yeah, we'd be happy to put them on demand, and we're
Wouldn't that
gonna
be nice?
do it immediately." So
Awesome. Okay, so
thanks to
so starting with episode 779, you can download every single one.
well, I'm not sure exactly how it works. They may even have some past things, but
Ooh,
as of
archived.
last week, they were going to. He said, I'll do it Monday morning. It'll
Oh,
be there."
that's really nice of
So
them.
I mean, that's just a
Thank
little
you,
bit of little bit
wonderful
of
folks out there at Robin Hood Radio.
and Ray Collin up in I think Rockport, New York. And hey, my email is on the page, so send me your email because I can, very nice guy. He's a math aficionado, tutors kids, and
Uh-oh.
so anyway.
So wait. So there's people that are out there and they have enough math skills to check our math?
Yeah,
Man,
yeah,
now I'm in
yeah,
trouble.
Yeah.
Good.
And he might even have a younger, fresher brain too.
Oh,
but I don't know.
yeah.
Well, yeah. All right, we've got so many stories, Robert. We need to get to
Okay,
it. So move on.
let's get to it. I'm going to take you to my favorite webpage on the internet, which is smartcenter.org. So if you go to www.smartcenter.org, again, if you're driving, put your car in IA mode. Or AI mode, or whatever mode where it drives
mode.
for you, okay? Or pull over and go to www.smartcenter.org, smartcenter.org, and you'll come to our wonderful webpage there. If you find the little trifecta rainbow T-shirts down there, just above that is the live link for Radio Science News, and I'm going to click on that for the first time in the existence in this multiverse. I'm sure that there are other Roberts in other universes that have sneaked a look, but not in this one. No. So here we are, April 3rd, 2021. We've got WHO
report.
Who? WHO report. Cancel.
Yeah.
Are we going to cancel the WHO report?
No, I just have a little quick. I've been so as I mentioned to you, I'm kind of tired of the almost Orwellian use of certain terms in a pejorative way.
No. Are you
anyway.
thinking the book, not a 1984 Orwellian term?
yeah.
As in, Horton here's a WHO report? I mean, what?
Maybe. So anyway,
Okay,
that's
cancel.
Then the thing
And
about
then
symptoms.
Okay, I'm all about symptoms because if you don't have symptoms, then obviously you don't have it. What?
Heart mass.
Heart mass.
Then a little quick thing on the
ECAT SKL
LED.
LED. Okay.
The ECAT SKL. It's originally the ECAT SK
LED.
was the electrical. Then they've decided to market lighting, which I mean is an interesting.
It's not a bad idea,
Not a bad idea.
being that they are converting most of what they have into electricity, and electricity into an LED is extremely efficient.
And so we get a look at that. Then, of course, the super photon.
Superphoton.
Oh, I love that show.
Strange photon from another planet.
Super photon is kind of a new look at Bose, Einstein-Bose condensates,
good.
and then, of course, you're familiar with Zhu's Hang.
Zhuzhong.
This is this is actually a story about quantum computing that kind of popped up that I thought was very interesting. A beautiful look at the Veil Nebula.
I like the Veil Nebula.
And then, of course, the French Titanosaur.
Titanosaur.
For the longest time, they couldn't find any. I don't know why they thought maybe the large sauropods would have skipped walking through France, but
it must be that they didn't like beignets or
we will
something.
not go to your country. But they have a wonderful new find in some limestone caves
In
that I thought
France.
was cool.
Okay, good.
And then because I wanted to continue the list of topics that we've not gotten to in the animal
like
world,
squids.
and lemurs, and I added grasshoppers to it.
Grasshoppers, squids, lemurs, and Neanderthals.
Well, and then a little quick. Now, the other thing is we have the variant chart.
Okay. Now,
And-
is the variant chart is that now fixed?
Well, I know now this is, we looked at it last week, and I'm going to say that for most of the COVID things, again, it's such an important topic, and there's so much interesting and good stuff happening, but it's, I want to say that it's being well covered by lots of people elsewhere. So I want to touch on these things. Like last week, let's just look at the variant chart real quickly.
Let's do that.
Maybe we'll kind of get that out of the way. Because the biggest thing going on, literally, my wife said, I want to see what's happening in our little town of Wheeling, West Virginia. And the big thing was that here in Ohio County, of which you are a resident, I'm just
I am a
outside.
resident.
I think, if I'm correct, they had 6 people that were detected with the new variant, the
Oh, wow.
the one that we're worried, the B117, and one person passed away from it. So this is in little rural. I'm not saying that we're somewhere in the backwoods, but
No.
because we're within, we've got interstate highways and all kinds of things happening. So we're not isolated, but it's just a little scary because we're looking at the variant chart, which, as we saw last week, shows that way back on the 2nd of January, so
Right.
January 2nd, 2021, there was like a not even a discernible sliver.
No, it was not even there, essentially.
And
And then
it-
there's a very tiny sliver on the 16th
Maybe
of January.
then maybe it doubled the next
Then
2
towards
weeks.
the end of January, there's a discernible amount that you cannot miss. And then by 2 weeks later,
Yeah, that's February.
It's very significant.
Well, and then as you look at it,
And it's just getting bigger and bigger
it's
and bigger.
pushing everything out, and it's very serious. So
In fact, it looks like that the variant B117 is currently far larger
Than the original
than
B12.
than the B12.
the one that we were first following. And again, I don't want to spend too much time on this because there is a lot to see here. If you look at this page, I mean, if you were going to take the time and look at there's things on genomic surveillance. That's the thing we're on. There's a whole thing where you can check for the sequencing. Like if you were a highly technical lab person, you're working on this. If you look to the right of that chart, you see there's a whole bunch of variants that they're not considering when they have a VOI or a VOC.
Yeah.
Those are the ones they're concerned about or interested. These other lineages, they're looking at them and they're kind of like, yeah. But there's a lot to look at here. The big deal is that, and again, I hear people say this over and over again, we're seeing light at the end of the tunnel, so please, don't just quit. I mean, I'm going to say to like the Texas Rangers, don't just open up your entire baseball stadium to unlimited seating. But I don't want to, I want to do what we can do, so we want to hit a bunch of the science. So we'll let people look at that chart, and we'll kind of follow it a little bit and maybe find other charts that might be more. There was a lot of talk and criticism of the World Health Organization report because apparently, because of, I'm going to say a lot of it seems to be primarily driven by political kind of things. There's just this intense need to blame somebody else or
Yes,
blame
it's
somebody.
It's always somebody else's fault, isn't it?
Well, but the thing is, I think it's absolutely appropriate to figure out, where this came from or what happened. But so this little story is, there were a couple different stories I looked at. This one was basically a quick, what are the 4 takeaways from their report? And I mean, look at this one. The first picture you look at, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, let's see, what kind of meat do we have?
all kinds of meat hanging up there. Says the leading hypothesis is it spread to people from bats via a yet to be identified animal.
Yeah, and we've looked at this.
So it went from. So what they're saying is that it went from bats to another animal to humans.
Yeah, and the thing the thing about these, what they call zootic, ZOO, where there's the fact that it's something that has moved from some animal in nature to man. Oftentimes, obviously the bird flu, swine flus, all those things are that type of thing. And I mean, this mechanism is something people have been very concerned about. So anyway, the quick, I mean, they go through a bunch of things, and everybody kind of agrees.
long
Hey, look,
report, isn't it?
we wish there was better information, and a lot of criticism of China, even though it's very possible that the reason why there's not a lot of information is they may not have information too. And everybody agrees that we need to have better access into original data. And, some of the big things that they talk about doing is looking into, like the blood banks throughout China, and they've done some of that in the United States. That's how they decided that. I remember we did a story where by looking at blood donors, and the stuff that was in the system, that this was actually in the United States way back when. So again, I'm thinking, so
way
how does
back
that
when.
fit in?
Yeah, interesting.
But basically they say the most probable source was somehow from the markets, and they need to look at it. it says the coronavirus probably was not widely circulating before December, but
Yep.
some of the predecessor,
That's the big 2 there.
yeah, and
And
then
then the 3, the lab leak hypothesis is unlikely, though it's hard to completely disprove.
yeah, the big thing is it's hard to disprove something that's and they think it's very unlikely. Now the lab thing was really fascinating to me because.
It's 11:15.
Well, thank you, Zarvox. So we're going to look at another story real quick, but we've done stories where I think in Scandinavia they destroyed all of the mink population,
Yeah.
all the farmers that were raising mink and stuff because
They were concerned.
DNA stuff had shown that there looked like there was a link that was possibly the animal, and then we talked about the pangolin, which is a kind of a food. Considered an exotic food in the Orient, and they think it had come through there. So, anyway, the point is, at the last sentence, we've only scratched the surface of these very complex studies that need to be conducted. So, there's no question that everybody needs to have better information. If China has not provided, then they do need to provide better
Yes,
information.
they do.
But at the same time,
Everybody does.
we kind of pulled a lot of our people out of China. So, that made me think about some other story. The reason why I put cancel, because I told you I was going to put up a
Pretty
story.
picture.
Oh, this is a beautiful picture, and this is from a really
Nice.
good story.
Nice
This
patties. It
magazine
says-
and organization, The
It
Scientist.
says NIH cancels funding for bat coronavirus research project.
Now, see, here's the whole thing. This could have given us the answers, right?
Right. The abrupt termination comes after the research drew President Trump's attention for its ties to the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Okay, so now this is the one where everybody said, well, this thing was funded under Dr. Fauci. Well, the original, okay, so here's the whole thing. If you read through this real quickly, what you're basically finding out is that back in, I think it was, maybe it's July, or no, it's actually, I want to say, my thing keeps popping up and blocking what I want to read. This is in August, but I think
August.
but I think that it was actually further back.
Okay, May 26th, last week, 77
Oh, yeah, so it was
Nobel
before that.
laureates and 31 scientific societies separately sent letters to NIH Director Francis Collins criticizing the decision to terminate the grant and urging that it be reviewed, Science reports. Wait. So if you're going to get a letter and it has been signed by 77 people that have won Nobel Prizes.
Oh, here it is. I'm looking down here. It says,
Wow.
and the company that was doing it, EcoHealth Alliance Partners on the program. Now, and again, I'm going to scroll back up. I don't know why this thing keeps dropping over my.
Mine is too there.
Because here it is. This is where the criticism of the NIH and the CDC under Fauci and all that stuff. The grant was first awarded in 2014, and then it was reviewed last year, and it went, continued. And here's the whole
EcoHealth
point.
Alliance.
It describes itself a global environmental health nonprofit organization dedicated to protecting wildlife and public health from the emergence of disease.
Sounds like a good idea.
The aims of the funded project included characterizing coronavirus as present in bat populations in southern China and conducting surveillance to detect spillover events of such viruses to people.
Wow.
Isn't
that an interesting thought?
Yeah, this is the whole thing. It's basically was like a first line of defense against the zoonotic risk factors in rural southern China. And the point of why they were even studying was because they had way back further, when they studied SARS and MERS,
Right.
determined that there were multiple coronaviruses that looked like they could be on the verge of mutating to us. And that's
Right.
why this is here.
Okay.
So anyway, that's the whole point. But it says somebody, one of their partners on the project, not the whole project, but just one of the people was the Wuhan Institute that had been focusing on. Anyway, it says the Washington Post published something about concerns, and then on April 17th. There was a briefing, a reporter who politically identifies as being from Newsmax falsely stated in a question that U.S. intelligence is saying this week that the coronavirus likely. This is where, like, again, the sentence starts where somebody says
where
this.
somebody says something weird, and then it goes out.
And then they say, why are you giving money to them to do
Yeah.
that research? And so then
So-
Trump just
so
says,
it's-
we're going to end that quickly.
Yeah, so it says that the NIH had awarded $3.7 million grant to the Wuhan lab. And this is in quotes, why would the U.S. give a grant like that to China, she asked. And then, in quotes, we will end that grant very quickly, Trump said
Yeah,
in
with-
his answer. And
That's it.
there you have it.
Say two, as we say in the
C'est la
hills.
vie.
Say-
C'est la guerre.
Yeah.
C'est la pomme de
Anyway,
terre.
that's just a little bit.
Wow.
I just wanted to touch on that because literally this is one of the incidences where the front lines of defense
Wow.
and the
God.
years ahead of the next out, we still, as far as I know, haven't reinstituted that program.
As far as I know, I haven't heard anything about it. So we severed this just because somebody said, "Hey, why are you giving this grant to
China.
To China?" And it's not a grant to China. It's a grant to study something going on in China.
It was a grant to a company in
keep
the United States.
the viruses under check.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say that if there's anything that might exacerbate the problem of security in a lab, it might be if you cut all their funding. I don't know.
That would be the first line of
So
attack.
anyway, I know nothing more about it than anybody else does,
Gee.
and it should be looked into. But that's one of the
There's-
factors that people have to keep in mind.
Again, we here on Radio Science News go, gee, if we had the time to write a book, there is a book here about what could have happened and what didn't happen,
Yeah.
and then what did happen
Well, and
because of that.
now this next one was just as you were speaking,
Symptoms?
about things that could and should have happened. One of the things that I just know over and over again, everybody at almost every level, when this initially was one case in, Washington State,
Right.
one of the biggest things was, and as just as a side, we've talked about Dr. Rick Bright and how he called that testing was so important because if you could have tested enough, you could have stopped this in its tracks early on.
Well, and if we tested enough, we would have found very, very, very quickly
Yeah.
that there are people with this that don't show
Wow.
any signs
And this
that
is
they have
and
it.
this is a news story that's just come out. That's basically it's in March 11th. It's basically saying
says an estimated 70% of COVID-19 cases show no symptoms.
So and one of the things
One out of 6.
One of the things I've heard over and over again from people as they're doing, I think that CNN show about the doctors who were one
Yes.
of
That
the
was very, very interesting.
well, it's going to be shown again. Well, I'm not sure if it's going to be. I think it may have been shown yesterday at a
Yeah.
better time frame, but this is kind of a long article. But the important thing about this article is what so many people say. What we missed in this was the idea that it was asymptomatic.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
this latest thing basically is showing that, like this large percentage, 17%, were
That's huge.
asymptomatic. 1 in 6 cases had no actual symptoms, even though you could have tested and determined
And
it was
determined that they were
Yeah.
with the disease. Now, what one of the things that I'm seeing that we missed. The first that we missed this. The second one that we missed was that it's transmitted through the air.
there. Yeah. Well, but the thing is, I think everybody's, even though a lot of people said it wasn't actually, we hadn't done the studies, it was clear that that's what they were looking, like with SARS and MERS, that
Right.
that at the very least you would go, hey, we're not sure, but let's assume it is, and
Well,
that's what I
let's
think
assume it
most
is,
people
yeah.
did. So anyway, so
Wow.
that's another interesting story, and like I said, all of these are really important, but it's like we almost never get to the poor Neanderthals at the end. You know
Poor
what I'm going to
Neanderthals.
suggest, Robert?
Shall we go to the Neanderthals
I just thought that this
or
story.
to the grasshoppers?
Let's go to Neanderthal, and then
Okay.
we'll hop around. All right. So here, this is actually very cool because it says that paleo artist Gabriela Amores Seller, she basically has one of the things that you've often talked about here at the Smart Center is how that science, math, art,
Research
and technology are
SMART, smart.
They're all integrally linked.
No.
I'm serious.
Are you?
So the thing that was kind of important in this thing was that somebody who had access to a lot of hard scientific data on on what was going on in the realm of these Neanderthals, then was kind of like tasked, based on what kind of pollen did you find, what kind
Sure.
of, bones. They did a whole series, and if you scroll down, you'll see kind of like artwork that basically
Yeah.
reflects what
So,
they.
so this is a Rocky Mountain scene look. I mean, when I say Rocky Mountains, not
Yeah,
the
like
Rocky Mountains,
rocks and
but
caves.
rocks and caves. And then there's certain species of trees, and there looks like
Exactly.
a deer and a little, zebra-looking thing in the background.
Fruits,
and
nuts.
and then there's an adult Neanderthal and a child, and they're like picking something off the ground and looking at stuff, and so it looks like a very a very pleasant scene. It says a Neanderthal man and child lounge among ancient Liberian plants and animals near Bolomar Cave, about halfway up the hill on the left in this painting. Halfway up the hill on the left. I don't see the cave, but okay.
Scroll down, and then there's a picture.
I do now. Okay. This painting depicted life in eastern Spain a couple of 100,000 years ago. Very cool. And then there's another. Yeah. This is interesting artwork.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the article is if you scroll down, it says insights into the local plants came from pollen grains and spores.
Very good. Very
Everything
good.
found, and then it says the stuff that they were very clear would have been in the environment: hazelnuts, strawberry trees, Mediterranean hackberry, myrtle shrubs, carob trees, chestnut trees. I mean, for one thing, chestnuts are like a huge source of food.
And strawberry trees.
Yeah, I'm not
That's
sure what a
interesting-
strawberry
I don't know
tree
what a
is,
strawberry
yeah.
tree is, but then it says the animal remains inform other parts of the drawing, such as the Neanderthal child watching a tortoise inch its way forward. Tortoises were cooked and eaten at the Bolomar Cave, along with frequent prey such as hares, rabbits, birds, and deer.
Yeah, this is really
It says
this is
people
neat.
also occasionally consumed large animals such as horses and hippos.
Man.
Hippos, that would be a large meal. There's a lot of meat on a hippo. Oh, okay, so that is a tortoise. That's what the Neanderthal kid is looking at. Okay, very cool. All right. Yeah, because I saw something that the kid was looking at. and
I love the idea that basically what they've done is put into a form
Very
that is more accessible.
Very nice. Yes.
All right. I feel so good about having taken care of the Neanderthals.
Thank you.
Because they've been slandered in recent years compared to Texas governors and different crazy things.
Oh no, not that.
I know. Who would do that? Just
Poor Neanderthals.
don't want to get into any trouble here. Okay, so let's look at.
compared to politicians. That's just mean.
I know, so fair. Heart mass.
Heart mass.
Heart mass. It almost sounds like in this Easter season, we're thinking, is this part of the religious ceremonies? No, it's not. Note to future space travelers.
Prepare for a shrinking heart.
Oh my gosh! And this is one of the things that you've talked. You've and I have discussed many times that
I
either
go on and on
either
about
what
this
they
until
call
people roll their eyes and run away.
well, in the combination of not just zero gravity but certain microgravities. It says what's that going to do to you? And I would always think, oh man, if you're in zero gravity, it says you'd be like Superman. He came from a planet, Krypton, that had a bigger gravity, came to the Earth, and he could just like leap like grasshoppers. We're going to talk about later. But
Grasshopper Man.
astronaut Scott Kelly was basically almost a year on the International Space Station.
And it says after that, Scott Kelly's heart diminished, but he remained reasonably fit.
Yeah. Now the thing is, when they say how much did it diminish?
Yeah.
Let's
how
go.
much?
Let's
Okay,
find.
So space shark gets smaller. It says he was aboard the International Space Station between
here it is,
2015 and 2016, and his heart shrank in mass by more than a quarter by the time he returned to the Earth.
That is significant.
That's a lot of mass to go away. Now, does that mass come back?
I think that it says further down. I think it
It
does.
says that just adds to the litany of transformations that the human body undergoes. Without the steady of downward pull of gravity, astronauts also tend to have swelled heads, squashed eyeballs,
Oh my
shriveled
gosh.
legs, and bones that become more brittle.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's all go to space.
And they say his heart shrank and atrophied as you would expect from going into space. Yeah.
And see one of the big things
Like they'll probably be okay.
yeah, one of the big things about space travel that I keep talking about is that okay, we know what goes on in microgravity, but if you go to the moon, do these things still happen to you?
Yeah, at
And
microgravities.
if you go to Mars, which has 38% gravity, do these things still happen to you? Is the only place that we can be in the solar system on the surface of a world the Earth? Or can we go to Mars? Are these
Yeah.
these effects going to be gone?
It's
And
11:30.
the answer to that question, we don't have an answer to that question.
Well, in the further down, they point out that there was a guy. It's not just a matter of the exercise because they always
Right.
show him, oh, we'll make up for it with exercise.
No, you can't.
The sort of passive or continuous pull of gravity. It has they were talking about a swimmer further down who always talking about how he was going to since he was basically buoyant in water and as it turns out, he exercised like crazy, like he was swimming the equivalent, but yet because it was, not just a question of the physical exercise, but these other issues, he actually lost, weight in his mass of his heart also. So anyway, it just
Wow.
goes back
See,
to the
this is
story you were
fascinating.
talking about. We need
We
to
need to find out.
take this into consideration.
And for the people that have looked this up online, I call this the a micro
Microgravity, yeah.
gravity research.
Yeah.
You need to see if fractional gravities can stop this.
Yeah.
And as far as we know, as human beings, we have no clue. So this study needs to happen. To be saying that we're going to go to Mars and not have an answer to this question is irresponsible.
Yeah, and the thing that I've always thought is, I mean, I know we talked about this with junior high school students, and we had talked about how you could have tethered crafts and different ways
Sure.
to generate gravity.
Right.
It's not. It's almost
So
kind of
you
like at
can
least do
actually
that.
Do that.
If you need to do it, it
Right.
would be a good idea.
It would be a very good idea because if your heart in less than one gravity continues to get smaller in mass, it will get to a point where it does not work.
I could just see a new movie, Planet of the Grinch. There'd be, Apparently, his heart was 1/3 the mass.
His heart was just too small.
That was too small. All right, we're going to jump to the ECAT SK LED because I'm just going to say now. Maybe I'll tell you what. We'll look at this and then we'll go jump up to the place on our site where we're following the actual blog, just because it's kind of a cool idea.
Okay.
So look, here's the story about the ECAT SK LED, and it says that I'm waiting for my ad to go away. No, I don't want whatever you're selling. DigiKey. Why did I want to stop seeing that ad? None of your business.
Because I don't want it. Because it's in the way.
I don't need
because it's irritating.
And
me.
as much as I like the Krista
Pick
McAuliffe
one.
silver dollar, I don't want to order any. So the story is photo of the 10,000 lumen ECAT
Oh,
is
that's a
published.
really interesting little thing. It says Andrea Rossi has been sending out emails to people who are interested in pre-ordering the ECAT SKL, containing a photo of the same thing, along with product specifications and an order form. Here is the single photo. Okay, so
And here's the key. And there's the photo. It looks very nice. The key data, Robert. We'll look at this.
200 grams. The operational lifetime is 100,000 hours. Consumes 3.9 watts, plus or minus 10%, and creates 10,000 lumens.
10,000.
Okay, what are you going to do with 10,000 lumens? It's the bat signal.
That's what it is.
That's what this is. It's the bat signal. Color 5000K, which is cold whites. The support is fit to be applied to walls, ceilings, or put upon tables. It's AC current. It can go 110 to 240, and 60 to 65 hertz.
Wow, let's see.
So what?
That's a lot of. I'm trying to picture it now. I know that your typical.
What are you going to do with that many lumens. That's
I'm
a
going to put
lot
them
of
on my.
lumens.
I'm going to, on those trucks like those 4x4 trucks where they had that light bar on top
Oh,
and
the light bar, yeah.
spotlight deer in the next county. I think.
On the moon.
So, but now look over to the right because I think there was something where it talked about. Oh, here it is. Rossi SK LED produces. Let's click on that one. 2,000.
2,500? Okay. Lumens per watt.
Oh, okay. Here it is. This is just a little bit before that one. It's right in the middle of where the Navy is apparently replicating his thing, and that's going to be a crazy story.
Replicating. That's an interesting term for it. It's like I'm going to go into the bank and I'm going to replicate some cash.
Okay, so this is actually from the blog where somebody's talking to him about a certain light that Philips makes that he might want to use, but you can't. It's called the Dubai lamp or something. But in it, he says it's got 2,500 watts or 2,500 lumens. Now
Lumens
I'm thinking that a basic 100-watt bulb.
Yeah.
Aren't those like 900 lumens or 800?
That's what I'm thinking. So I'm just wondering what you need 100,000 lumens for.
Well, but let's scale down to this more graspable number. So if I'm looking at a typical incandescent light bulb that you screw into your lamp,
Yeah.
and it is a 100-watt light bulb, and it produces only, even if you called it 100 lumens, this thing from 1 watt produces 2,500 lumens. This is really, wow, we're talking about some really, the thing about the ECAT that I think will eventually.
Okay, I just did a research here on a Google. It says to replace a 100-watt incandescent bulb, look for a bulb that gives you about 1,600 lumens.
Oh, 1,600? Okay.
Okay. If you want something dimmer, go for less lumens. If you prefer brighter, look for more lumens.
Well, there's a thought.
75-watt bulb with an energy-saving bulb that gives you about 1,100 lumens. So again, what do you need 100 times this for?
And I just think of Tim Allen. It's got to be, well, but in terms of,
It seems like a lot of lumens.
well, I think it does, and the fact that the unit that he's showing is 10,000 lumens, like the intensity of that. But you know what? I mean, they appropriately used, and I'm not talking about what I see at the various malls and parking or car dealerships where they light up the world with all their lights. But the size of this thing and producing 10,000 lumens, I mean, that's 10,000 lumens, 100,000 hours. Man, that's a lot of light.
That's a lot of light. That's
Let
what
there be.
I'm just wondering why you need that much light.
Well, for my tanning bed, I sure need that. Well, that.
But other than that,
No. Well, anyway, the two things. Okay, I'm going to go. Let's scroll back to our opening page, radiosciencenews.org. There's the Rossi blog right up there next to the thing.
okay.
I'm just kind of see what. Just a quick look at what they're looking at. Oh, they have the order form. He says we're preparing it. There's. I just want to see if there's anything. He says, dear Dr. Rossi, it's a beautiful and affordable lamp. May I suggest a diffuser globe to diffuse it through the room? Well, that's a nice idea. Thanks. Is the light emitted polarized? He says yes. And what is the angle? 60 degrees. That's interesting. Anyway, there are a bunch of questions about it. Anyway, the thing I'm saying that's going to be interesting coming forward is if you look at the basics, I think that the original, as they claim will be marketed, the ECAT, will produce heat.
Right.
So there's just heat. Well, here you've got heat. The thing that has kind of been the big holy grail of the research was they feel they now have configuration with this SKL that produces electricity
Right.
at 90 or 95%.
Exactly.
And now they've coupled it with, so the idea of coupling what they do with specific things, whether it's going to be a heat unit, a light
A
unit,
light unit. Right.
charging stations
Right.
for the new infrastructure
cars,
bill, who
yes.
knows?
Boy, would that be a brilliant move.
Well, That would be, and hopefully they're going to be doing that. So we're going to continue to follow that. We're not going to ask anybody to believe it or not believe it. Well,
Just wait and watch.
if you see a 10,000 10,000 lumen, the light, and some policeman's holding a flashlight, and you're going, I can't see anything. No. Just to stay with the theme of light, I thought this was kind of
Super photon.
yeah, because I mean, part of this gets into the realm of not strange physics, but most people aren't thinking of the Bose-Einstein condensate. They're thinking of their Bose headphones or their speakers or something. But the idea of a Bose-Einstein condensate is something really important to a lot of what's going on in the ECAD as well, because he talks about this is basically talking about a photon,
As a new state of light.
which is it basically
What
it's
an
made up
interesting
of
concept.
made up of thousands of individual photons that are then acting as one. That's the whole thing about a Bose-Einstein condensate is where it's like typically you're down at really cold temperatures but this has to do with phase transition research that they're doing, and when you read through this, even after you've read it 2 or 3 times, as I admittedly did, it's not completely clear, except they basically they talk about something you and I have talked about oftentimes, the idea of like phase, when something goes from one phase to
Right,
another. It's kind of an
exactly.
unusual thing. Even if you're talking about water going from liquid water to ice, what happens in the phase. If you scroll down, it's talking about phase transition.
And an overdamped phase.
Yeah, because when you're talking about they refer to laser
Yeah.
type stuff. That's when stuff is in phase.
In phase.
And it's
sure.
all they're all marching together. Remember those films from the
Yep.
science class. And then things could go out of phase, but what they're talking about is they give you a little description of how they do it with partially reflecting and but the idea is that they're damping it, and that this is coming from damping the transition between phase and out of phase, and somehow getting this particular what they call Bose-Einstein condensate of a This is like a photon condensate. This sounds like a Star Trek weapon or
Yeah,
something.
it says the phase transition is what physicists call the transition between water and ice during freezing. But how does the particular phase transition occur within the system of trapped light particles? The scientists explain it this way. The somewhat translucent mirrors cause the photons to be lost and replaced, creating a non-equilibrium that results in the system not assuming a definite temperature and being set into oscillation. This creates a transition between the oscillating phase and the damped phase. Damped means that the amplitude of the vibration decreases.
Yeah, it's somewhat less than the.
It says the overdamped phase we reserve corresponds to a new state of the light field, so to speak. Wow, it
I
never
know.
occurred to me that you could have a phase of light or phases of light, like you've got a solid liquid gas plasma.
Right.
Wow, this is really cool. Okay, I'm going to need to research this
Yeah,
more.
that's as I said.
This is just fascinating.
This is the first look at something that is going
Wow.
to be important, but wow,
phases of light.
So now Jiyu Zhang,
Jiyu Zhang.
just rolls off the tongue.
Yep.
This is again, I'm kind of sticking with these little. This is about. It says new light-based quantum computer has achieved quantum supremacy. And I again, another article that you're going to want to take some time to look at to kind of figure out what they're talking. They show a little diagram that looks like something from Walt Disney's Tron. It says the quantum computer works by sending particles of light, illustrated in red, those are little photons, into a network of channels and then measuring the photons at the other end. Of course, I'm thinking, well, what does that mean, measuring at the other end? But the only thing I wanted to show you, it says, this is the part that we'll look at this, Robert, and then we can move on until we get more information.
Okay.
It says, performed a calculation impossible for a conventional computer. And do I have to click? Oh, here it is. The new quantum computer can perform a calculation in 200 seconds that would take more than 500 million years on the world's fastest non-quantum.
or classical computer.
Like those pictures you used to see of like Cray computers
Yeah,
all lined up
uh-huh.
on the walls. So a typical, classic electron-based wire, I guess, computer. I mean, when I know, Robert, you can picture numbers in your head that give you a sense of it, but we're talking about 200 seconds versus 500 million years. That's just astonishing.
That's astounding.
And it's almost like you can't even grasp what that means. And there's even a picture down below how it kind of works, and I'm thinking, man.
By 200, so in 200 seconds, this can do 500 million years.
Yeah.
Okay. We are looking at we're looking at 7.9 times 10 to the 13
That's crazy.
power.
Well, I mean, there it is.
We are looking at this thing going
It's
78.9
11:45.
trillion times faster than the fastest computer. 79 trillion times faster.
So that means like when I'm like working on my Google machine, if I click on recipe for cookies or something, it won't
It'll
just spin.
come right up.
It won't just
It
spin.
won't
or
spin.
anything?
No, you will not see it spin. There will be no spin.
My head will spin. That's great. Well, spinning.
79 trillion with a T.
Wow.
Trillion times faster. Oh my, that is amazing.
Well, but as I say, the question becomes, okay, what does that mean to everyday life? And maybe it won't mean that much, but looking at the Veil Nebula, I saw this and I thought I'm putting this
Nebula
up
fan.
because it's just so beautiful, and this has been a revisit of imagery from the Hubble Space Telescope. It says it revisits the Veil Nebula. Now, I think if you click on it, it enlarges. Let me see.
Ooh, well, that'll be nice. Oh, what a gorgeous image.
Now, what they've done is and I guess they've used various data,
That's really nice.
but they're showing the fact that it's just got amazing, complex, swirling ion cloud, all kinds of crazy stuff. When you enlarge it, it's
Textures. I mean, it has swirl patterns and textures and
Yeah.
densities.
So basically, it says that the techniques they use to optically process the data brings out fine details of the nebula's delicate threads and filaments of ionized gas.
Wow.
So, and like I say, when you click on it and it enlarges, you just have to. It's amazing.
That's really, really spectacular.
Nice indeed. So
Thank you.
So of course, it also mentions on the page how we're coming to the Hubble telescope's been up there for a while.
It's been up there a long time.
So we're maybe that'll be part of infrastructure. I'm not sure. Maybe not.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah, well, that'd be tough. That'd be a tough sell. Titanosaur. Titanosaur.
So, do we do potholes or the Hubble Space Telescope?
I'd say the potholes are maybe first here. So this is a cool story because we were talking, I think, last couple weeks ago about the large sauropods, even that maybe considered the titanosaurs, the big ones, being all the way up in Greenland, and they were talking about the original.
So surely they have come to Paris.
Well, I would have walked through, especially since it says they're primarily vegetarians. They might have gone through some, but not to make light of this. This is, if you look at this, the thing to do is probably scroll. They show a picture of a karst cave. Karst caves are like limestone. And the thing that's cool about this one, of course, first when I read this, I said, no wonder they were sneaking through France. The footprints were on the ceiling of the cave. And I said, okay, now
wait a minute. How do they do that?
But what was going on was that the footprints had been, made, and then there was weaker material underneath.
And then it eroded away.
But if you scroll all the way down, they give you a good description of the rock types. It says marl limestone, marley limestone, oolithic. It's all these different limestones. And here's a picture. And if you notice down in the little corner, that's a little 0 to 1.
Those are in meters.
This is a meter.
Yeah.
And
so each of those little divisions is centimeters. That's 8 inches.
Yeah, so the thing that they were
Each
surprised.
of those little divisions is 8 inches long.
So what really surprised them, in this one picture, you have three pretty good images. They were just
Yeah.
talking about how a lot of it was tough to find, but
Wow.
you have three pretty good footprints, and just based on the size of it, it says they were probably the dinosaur. Just we're talking about the size. The dinosaur was from the Middle Jurassic period, likely to be a member of the group of the large sauropods that we call Titanosauriformes. So I know when they found them in South America and stuff, we're talking bigger than your typical
These are
Apatosaurus.
big.
and
These
things.
are big dinosaurs.
So literally,
Very cool.
each of these footprints is like a meter or so long.
Almost, yeah.
So they were in France, walking upside down on a cave. They appeared on the cave
I'm not sure I believe that, but
because of the wearing away of the
Yes.
the lower layers. And that
that's
was really
so cool.
French titanosaurs. Now
I
the
like
grasshoppers.
The fact that they're French.
The grasshoppers. This goes back. Well, you were saying, what are they going to do with all those lights? Those 10,000 lumen lights.
Oh, they're gonna cook grasshoppers.
Well, they're certainly going to attract them because this is a story. I don't know. This is actually, I really like Phys.org. I'm just so pleased that these physics guys can come up with such interesting stories sometimes, because they don't just stick around in nothing but physics, Robert. Except this one is related to. There's a little. It says in the middle of July. This explains like a thing. People in Las Vegas began to notice grasshoppers filling the air at night. And I'm thinking, well, you'd probably be thinking that, this was another plague or something. If you're in Sodom and Gomorrah, you expect to see maybe a plague of locusts. But it says, so great were the numbers of locusts began to refer to them as the Great Grasshopper Invasion of 2019. So what they started to find out was data from weather stations, the ocean, this would be NOAA and the Las Vegas weather stations were basically observed a cloud resembling a thunderstorm that appeared on radar screens around and over the city of Las Vegas. And so what they basically were able to do was calculate. This was a cloud of these things that were just hovering over
grasshoppers. They said they then used the data from the radar, the size and density of the clouds, and grasshopper data, their average size and weight, to calculate the number of grasshoppers that appeared that night. The data showed that on the peak night, the number of grasshoppers was approximately 46 million, which the researchers note would weigh approximately 30.2 metric tons. These guys have a lot of time on their hands. It also showed that the densest clouds of grasshoppers were centered over the most brightly lit parts of the city. Well, yeah, they're attracted to lights. Las Vegas is known for its huge, bright neon signs, which attract visitors and, I may add, grasshoppers. And their money. I didn't know that grasshoppers had money, but okay. In this instance, however, it appears that the bright lights attracted the grasshoppers. It is still not clear why the grasshoppers amassed into such numbers on that fateful night, but local weather reports noted that the prior winter had been unusually wet. Well, when you have an unusually wet winter, you do get lots of insects.
And grasshoppers are supposed to be tasty eating, I hear.
That's what I understand. So if you've got bright lights and grasshoppers,
buffet, lots
yes,
of
those bright lights could cook the grasshoppers, and then you've got $5 lobster and grasshopper.
Wow. Are you sure those are small shrimp and not just?
Those do not look like shrimp.
But I mean, it's astonishing to realize that in an area that's, it's a little bit parched out there in Nevada. Even with the rain, the idea that there were 30.2 metric tons hovering over downtown.
That's a lot of grasshoppers. It says they suggest. Now this is interesting. They suggest that the behavior of the grasshoppers is ample evidence of the impact of artificial light can have on insect behavior.
That's right.
Do you think?
So for Robert and I and other people who are considered about light, think about light pollution.
Light pollution. Yeah. Hey, if you want 30.2 metric tons of grasshoppers, turn on the lights.
And they would make it. They would make it metric tons.
They would make it metric tons.
Just to throw me
Absolutely.
off. Let's look at now our squid story that we didn't get to this until after the show, and we talked about it after the show because this is one of my favorite stories because I was telling you the little squid and its glowing bacteria.
Oh yes,
You
this is fascinating. You needed to tell everybody. your
Well,
your goal in this is to actually talk to people about why this squid and its glowingness
That's right.
important to you and your family.
Well, the funny thing about this is my daughter, who is a microbiologist, she got her PhD in microbiology, and she was struggling through her wonderful little college up in Ohio, Hiram College, just up the road
Good
here from
college,
West Virginia. Wonderful little place. They did a nice job of finding. You could get during the summer, they'd find you a job either in some lab. One time she designed a whole spider lab for the biology
Cool.
department. But then the next time she did, then the third year, she got a really good but tough job at Ohio State that had to do with genomics, which meant that she had to learn how to use all of these like radioactive marker things to mark genes, and they would try to, say like they would be trying to alter something genetically. So they would want to put a gene into some other thing, and they would use maybe a virus, or there were all kinds of, they even had some physical ways of doing it, like a shotgun thing that would splatter this. But the point was, the only way you could tell if the gene actually became attached or was where it was, then you had to go through this complicated thing of radioactively marking
Right.
the
Yes.
guanine and the thymine. I mean, it was complex and stuff. It was really tough. But anyway, she learned how to use all that crazy equipment. And so the next year when she was looking for something, she couldn't really find anything good. But I said, well, listen, list the stuff that you've been using and the stuff you've been doing, and maybe somebody will see it. Well, somebody from the University of Hawaii said, hey, if you know how to use that equipment, we're doing stuff with bobtail squid.
Yeah.
And we're trying to, because bobtail squid and a germ that causes diphtheria are relative, the Fisheri, the Vibrio is a dangerous bacteria, and one of its manifestations is like diphtheria. But a Vibrio fischeri, discovered by some scientist named Fisher, is basically something that works in a symbiotic relationship in these little bobtail squid and other deep sea creatures to produce bioluminescence.
Isn't that
I mean,
cool?
it's so complex.
It's awesome.
So anyway, very long story short, and when you read this is more about the bobtail squid and this how it uses illumination and yada yada. It talks about the fact that this little juvenile squid is completely free of any bacteria when it hatches, but within hours, its light organ becomes colonized by a very specific type of bacteria, and here's the Vibrio
So
fischeri.
cool.
So anyway, the very long story short that I was relating to Robert last week was that after doing that little summer internship at the University of Hawaii, and then her senior year, they contacted her and said, oh, the University of Wisconsin is going to build us an entire laboratory, and if you'd like to come do your become a graduate student, then we'll just sign you in and we'll just put you on the list and you're done. It was like, what a
Awesome.
wonderful thing. But the thing they worked on over all this time was, instead of having a radioactive marker, they figured out a way to use a bioluminescent marker
Right.
for their genomic studies, which meant that if you were trying to figure out whether your thing was successful or not, you didn't have to use radiation. You didn't have to have things, scintillation, you didn't have to have all this complicated stuff. All you had to do was see if it lit up under UV light.
Right.
And so,
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
so anyway, but as I said, none of the students and stuff got in. They were not on the patent or anything, as near as I
See,
know.
that isn't right. Everyone should share in the patent.
I think you're probably right. Hey,
I
we have a
think
quick.
so.
We're going to look at the lemurs, and I'm going to be watching the
Lemur.
time.
All right.
I'm at 57:30 right now. So
Okay.
I'll. An unusual creature is coming out of winter's slumber. Here's why scientists are excited. Now look at this little cool little creature. Apparently he was hibernating in one of my sweatshirts, if I could tell her. This sounds a little bit like me. If you binged on high-calorie
Look at this
snacks
little cute guy.
and spent the winter crashed on a couch in a months-long food coma,
There I am.
you'd likely wake up worse for wear, unless you happen to be a fat-tailed dwarf lemur. Why? How dare you?
Hey, wait a minute.
You fat-tailed dwarf. That's a great...
I have a fat tail, but I'm not a
Dwarf lemur.
dwarf.
So this is a little guy in Madagascar. It spends 7 months each year motionless.
Wow, that sounds just like me.
So during its winter, it basically hibernates for 7 years. Now, it says they hibernate in the wild, but they rarely do so in zoos because they're climate controlled.
Sure.
But it says our closest hibernating relative has gone into true deep hibernation in captivity for the first time at the Duke Yeah, I'm assuming Duke University Lemur Center. This is like a very complex thing. Hibernation is literally in their DNA. Madagascar. They're fed extra during the summer so they can bulk up like they do in the wild, and then they'll hunker down. If you give them the wild conditions, they basically, because it's literally in their DNA, will go into this. After years in captivity, will they still do what if they have the wild conditions? And so they did. And there's a little lemur all just curled up.
They are really cute.
8 months, 70% of the time was in metabolic slow motion.
Talk about slow motion.
I'm going to get down to the last thing.
This is a wonderful article.
Yeah, this is cool. But basically, they're showing that a lot of this is linked to and how it could be important for research into strokes, heart. It has to do with how they adapt to all these things. Very neat. Hey, listen, I have about enough time to invite people to come back to Radio Science News next week, 11 till 12 on morning on Saturday. And then on the page, you can see how you might listen to it subsequently, including, Robert, the new feature.
It's 12 o'clock.
Thank you, Zarbucks. On demand.